What's up, guys? Today I actually have a syndicate member on the chat with me, and this is a syndicate member who had every reason to make excuses for himself. He has a full-time job, a very demanding full-time job. He has a wife, he has kids, he's got a large amount of obligations that he has to take care of. And he's been with the syndicate now for about a little over a year and a half. And it's really been awesome just to watch his progress since he joined us and to see how far he's come. So I wanted to bring him on to my channel today to share with you guys his story about how he was able to go from where he was, which was not knowing too much about the industry and certainly not having a lot of the knowledge for how to succeed, to now he's actually directly pitching to TV shows and getting TV placements. So it's really just awesome to see that kind of progress, that kind of 180 flip from where he probably was earlier on in his music career to now actually directly offering a licensable sound to a TV show. So it's really cool to hear when my students have these success stories. So I wanted to bring them on so we could talk about it. So Travis, welcome to the channel, man. Thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and where you were about the time that you found me, you found the syndicate, and what you were doing in your music career at that point?
Sure. So my name's Travis. I am 47 years old. I am an in-house corporate attorney at a Fortune 50 company in Memphis. And when I joined the syndicate, I frankly had not done music in several years, between getting married and work and having kids and moving a few times. Had really sort of lost the thread. And around January 2018, I sort of looked around and I have a very happy life. I'm very fortunate, very, very grateful, but wasn't feeling terribly fulfilled and sort of felt like I was, providing logistics for family and work more than anything else. So got back into making music. I initially thought that I would sort of amuse myself by maybe getting a little royalty-free music out there on Audio Jungle or Pond 5. And then found your videos and sort of kept looking around, and I kept coming back to your videos, and I liked your mindset and what you were saying and your just general attitude, that this is something that's possible. And so pulled the trigger on joining the syndicate around New Year's 2018.
That's awesome. And so before you had found my channel, my YouTube videos, whatever you had found, what was your knowledge level of sync licensing? I know you said you'd heard about these royalty-free sites, which now, if you guys don't know, are coming into some problems right now because some of them are changing their terms and reducing the amount of composer share they're giving you guys. In fact, Pond 5 is one of them. But you knew about the royalty-free sites. So what was your perception of getting music onto TV back then, if you can remember? Did you think, some people think that it was, only A-list major label, popular artists that get those placements, or maybe only the high-end composers, Danny Elfman, Hans Zimmer, those are the only ones getting them. What was your perception of how to get music on TV shows?
Pretty much what you're saying. I thought it was, you had to be some superstar, or that there was a small stable of composers that would do it. It's something I had thought about for probably a decade or two. I have some old books about it from years ago, but really didn't understand that it's something that just average people can do. So that was encouraging to hear, and sort of tabled the Pond 5 side of things pretty early.
Yeah, and the other thing too I want to point out for you guys is that with these royalty-free sites, when you submit tracks to them, you're basically posting them into an open marketplace where nobody's actively pitching your music to clients, okay? This is the issue with a lot of these larger catalog royalty-free sites that will just take anything. They'll take anything, almost. I mean, there might be some things where they reject it just because of quality standards, but for the most part, if it's a song, you can basically create a free account, throw it up there, so your music is out there, but it's not being pitched. So when you partner with TV film libraries, this is where you're going to get people that will actively pitch your music because they have a financial incentive to do so. You don't get, or they don't get paid unless you get paid. So it's a beautiful situation. I think some producers have a hard time wrapping their heads around giving up a portion or some or all of their publishing because they think, well, you're never supposed to give up your publishing, but they don't understand the incentive structure that's built into this kind of an industry. So if you can wrap your head around that, you can see the long-term picture of why that's good for you to basically have potentially dozens or hundreds of people pitching your music for you while you sleep and while you make new music. If you can see that bigger picture, it's a great fit. But let me ask you, Travis, about your progress in terms of when you first decided to join the syndicate, decided to really go 100% with sync licensing. I'm sure there was a daunting road in front of you because you probably obviously saw that you have a full-time job, you've got a family, you've got obligations. So what was your perception in terms of the time it was going to take to devote to this, and what were some of your early challenges when you first were getting started?
Yeah, I mean, the initial challenge was that I wasn't very good at producing. I've always had, good musical ideas, but just getting my head around how it works and how to get a track sounding full and loud, that definitely took a lot of time. But I was stretched very thin in terms of time. In addition to work, I was on the board of directors for a cancer charity. My wife has had survived 4 different kinds of cancer. So that was important work. I was a leader in Cub Scouts with my boys. I'm still the president of my HOA. Haven't gotten out of that one yet, but I started pulling back from a lot of things that I didn't have to do. I'm always going to be at work. I'm always going to be there for my family, but I was able to pull back from some stuff on the periphery that was cutting into the, what is really a very finite amount of time that I have for music.
Absolutely. And were there conversations you had to have with your wife, with your kids about what you were trying to do here? Because obviously they're still a big, pretty much number one priority for you. But there's still going to be times, I'm sure, where you do need to have some, studio time where the door
Yeah.
needs to be shut. You need to be focused on what you're doing,
Yeah.
and you need to ask for their help in giving you that free time. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the conversations that you had, how you explained it to them, and why obviously they have been very helpful to you because you're doing really well and you're obviously still very productive and cranking out a lot of great tracks. So obviously the conversations went well and they were very supportive. But how did that process work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it took a little bit of time for everybody to figure out that this wasn't sort of a, daddy's latest interest. I've gone through, done woodworking. I've done, various things over the years that were sort of flash in the pan interests that I was really into for a while, and then, sort of got stepped away from. So I think it did take a little bit for people to figure out that this one was different and that this was really something that I enjoyed and was important to me. And that those conversations did go well. It's always a work in progress. I'll tell you, my kitchen is right there, and our living room is back there, and there's no door over there. And that was sort of one of my sort of compromise I made, was that I was not going to be holed up in a sort of secret room in the house. I still wanted to be an engaged member of the family. My kids are coming in the studio all the time. They'll listen and they'll point at the screen and say, I think we need more notes there, which is, not hard to implement, but a good note to get, I guess. So it's a work in progress, but they're very supportive, and especially as I've had successes now, they're like, oh, this is real, and this, it's working out. So I think they're encouraged too, and they're very supportive.
That's really cool, man. And it's hard for people who don't know about this side of the industry to hear when you first approach them to say, hey, I want to get into TV film sync licensing. They're thinking, you mean like you're going to, get some huge deal? Like, you're going to go on American Idol and get your music on TV? Like, there's so many misconceptions about what this industry is.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, because there have been so many pipe dream approaches to succeed with music out there, and because of shows like American Idol, people do consider it a sort of like, well, good luck, you're probably not going to get lucky, it's 1 out of 10,000 people that get a deal, that get discovered. This is how just the vast majority of the population still views anything that has to do with making a full-time income from your music. So I hope you guys who have been following my channel for a while, and maybe those of you that are brand new, do at least take that from this video. It's not that at all, okay? There is no American Idol process here. It's not a lotto ticket approach that I am telling you guys. Like, just put your music out there and hopefully you get lucky. Mm-hmm. That is not at all what's happening in this industry. It takes hard work and it takes a service mindset. So obviously, Travis, I know you obviously understand that digging in and taking the time to improve your productions, improve your mixes and mastering skills that you had to do. in order to create a serviceable and licensable product for people who are putting together TV shows, movies, commercials, ads, radio spots, all of that stuff. Okay, so it's just think of it as a service industry. It's nothing more and nothing less than that. I think people get this mystical view of what it's like to be on the other side of, like, if you're making music full time, it must be, you just have your lucky stars aligned and everything just lined up at the right time in the right place. Well, and I think Travis and I, we've talked about that your luck, and maybe you even pointed this out in Sync Academy, that like when you start doing really good work, like lucky things and good things just start happening to you. Like things just start lining up for you. And I think maybe I was wrong. Were you the one that composed a podcast theme and somebody else heard about that and came and got you afterwards and hired you
Yeah,
again?
my wife has a podcast. It's called Starling Creative Living. I'll get a little buzz marketing in for her. But I did a podcast for her, podcast theme, and then another podcaster reached out and wanted a theme for their podcast. And okay, I'll do that. The same time that was going on, a friend of mine from college has a play showing up in New York City this week, and they needed some underscore stuff for that that was sort of Americana tinged. And so one of my tracks is getting played at a theater in New York City this weekend. So it's great. I'm super excited. There's I hope this momentum will continue, because it's been a lot of very early mornings have gone into being able to produce music that's, I'm not great. I'm not the greatest composer or producer out there, but my level of quality is pretty much there now. So it hopefully this momentum will continue.
And I would disagree. You're actually a very great composer, very good. But he's making a good point here, and I agree for myself that I am not the best composer or producer either. But the only reason why I kept being relevant and keep getting the clients that I got in this industry is just because I kept showing up. And for Travis, he keeps waking up before work and doing that. I want to actually talk about that too. But the other thing before that is you recently put together your own website, right? You actually have put your own composer, producer, TV film producer website together, which is kind of interesting how that correlates with all these new gigs coming. I'm not saying they're connected, but there's definitely it's interesting sort of thing where you're now putting yourself out there. You're putting that kind of that energy out there that you have a professional presentation, you have a service to offer, and you can actually now put up some snippets of some of the music that you put together. So if somebody does have another podcast or something else they want to hire you for, or play or anything like that, you can now send them directly to your website. So what was it about creating your web? Why did you feel you should create a website? And what have you noticed since you've had it up there?
It had been on my to-do list for a long time. I'm about to get done with an album and pitch that. What immediately prompted it was that the URL, Wheat Penny Productions, was going to be in the playbill for this show in New York City. Well, be good if there was a live site that went with that. So last weekend I took some time, watched your tutorial about it, which is great. Wix is super easy to use, especially the music player. It was like it really does make a difference. You feel much more real with a website. And I'm an attorney all day long, but on typing composer for TV and film, and then having some bullet points of things that I've now actually done in that space it felt incredible. It was really motivating.
That's awesome. And that is a really great point. I didn't even think about that it is an identity issue here as well, too, because like all day long and for many years now, you are attorney, you are a lawyer, right? And that becomes a big part of your identity. It's not all that you are, but obviously it's a big chunk of what you do. So obviously it kind of gets tagged in with you.
Yeah.
So when you do create this other website, this other thing, and for everybody watching this, whatever your day job is, when people ask you, oh, what do you do? Usually you give them the day job title, right? But this is a way for you to basically start building a secondary identity for yourself to say, oh, I'm a TV film composer, right? And that does do something for your confidence. And I don't know if I could put it into words, but I do remember the same feeling when I finally put together my website. It took me 4 or 5 years. I'm embarrassed it took me that long to finally put it together. But when I finally had it, I was like, okay, now I'm doing something. Now there's a legitimate presentation. This feels a little, like you said, it feels a little bit more real. And I remember like that feeling, just like kind of like I took a step up a little bit. I
Yeah.
felt like I was kind of like walking above the ground just for a couple of days, because it felt like I'm now a professional. I'm now really doing this for real. I think before it was kind of like you kind of feel like a fraud in a way. And I'm like, I don't even have a website. I don't even have business
Yeah.
cards. Like, what kind of a clown am I? I don't even have anything together, right? So you just feel like you're kind of like, you're sort of halfway putting this whole thing together. But when you finally have that website, custom URL, I don't recommend you guys do the wix.com/free site, like all that
Right.
kind of stuff. That never looks good. And also when you have the free banner at the top, like, this site was created for free with Wix. Also not the best look either. Pay for the premium, just get
Mhm.
your own domain and make it all yours, 100% yours. It does say a lot about your commitment to this industry, about your seriousness as a producer, and it will do a lot for your motivation and your productivity moving forward. And I think Travis obviously agrees with that. So the last thing I do want to finish with, Travis, is the fact that for you, because you've got so many things that you've got to take care of through the day, you decided the best way to get music done is to wake up way before work. Was this something you were doing before licensing for any other project, or was this like a brand new thing where you had to wake up a few hours before work? So what prompted that, and how was that transition for you, if that was a new thing for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I run in the mornings, so that was what I was doing before. I still run, but I'd been getting up pretty early for a while. But this was earlier than than that even. So most days during the week, I'm up at 4 or 4:30. Try to be at my doll with a good cup of coffee by 4:30 or 5, and then sneak in an hour and a half before anybody starts to wake up in the house. And then once they're up, I'm sort of on point for getting the kids ready for school. My wife's a teacher, so she's getting ready and getting to school earlier than anybody else. But so my mornings are once the other humans are awake, it becomes a little more complicated. But I can still pop in and out some during that. But the reality is with the job I've got, when I get home from work, I'm done. I have to make decisions all day, and I have such decision fatigue by the time I get home that the best time for me to do this was in the morning. And I just decided I was going to do what it took to make that happen and protect that morning studio time. Jerry Seinfeld had an old routine about morning guy and night guy. And night guy was always screwing over morning guy, staying up late and watch TV and doing whatever else. And so I had a little bit of that when I first started, but eventually, and especially with your time management video, which I think is just superb. I go back and watch that probably once a month, just to remind myself of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. But taking steps to protect that morning time, thinking ahead of time about what I want to get done, so I'm not just sitting down and noodling. Um, Being very intentional with that studio time, and working as efficiently as I can. I'm lucky doing, I think, Americana, because my sound palette tends to be the same. So I'm using a lot of the same instruments over and over again. So I don't have huge 50-track sessions that I've then got to EQ and mix and master. And because the instruments are the same, a lot of the time the EQ is the same, or very similar. So I'm big on having a good template for my session. I'm big on saving presets that I think I'm going to use again and again. And the latest thing I'm really into is the articulation sets in Logic. I picked that up off of one of the Sync Academy tutorials, and that was such a revelation, because I used to spend a lot of time programming sort of key switches down at the bottom of my MIDI, and being able to select that out of the editor instead is it's sad how interested I am in it. But I spend I have something I call Workflow Wednesday, because I'm usually pretty exhausted by the middle of the week, and so Wednesday nights I will sort of figure that I'm beyond being able to really create music, but I'll try to do something that will help my workflow for the times that I am working.
That's a great idea and a great suggestion for everybody watching there, to have one day a week or maybe one day every 2 weeks, whatever works for you guys' schedule, to not worry about music and just worry about improving your workflow, or maybe looking for new samples to work with, like all the decisions that will improve your productions, but they're not creative decisions, right? These are just all more technical decisions, or like he was saying, finding these key switches and all these articulations that can really, once you need a certain kind of a plucking pattern or something like that, you've got all these really cool things right there. So I think everybody should take time at least once a month, I would say, to devote time to improving your workflow, whatever it is. Like Travis said, these little tiny things will make a huge difference, because you guys all know that feeling that you've got this creative idea, you're so excited about it, and then you run into a technical snag, or you can't find the right sound, or you can't do this, or you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all these technical things, or you don't have the right samples to work with, and you can't find what you really need. That kills the entire creative process. Sometimes that's what leaves a lot of your tracks half finished, is because you just didn't have that next step instantly. Like, you could find it really well. So sometimes just taking even a day to search through all of the samples that you have, listen to them, categorize them. We have actually some tutorials in Sync Academy also about categorizing your loops and putting them in places where you can find them easily, and staying really organized. That's the stuff that will help you finish tracks, and you got to finish tracks in this business. You cannot do things halfway, be done, oh, I'm going to try something else, and just continuously finish your work. You've got to get into the habit of finishing and completing and closing your projects with a completed track. So, well, Travis, thank you so much, man. That was really very useful, insightful information. I do recommend all of you guys to give waking up early a shot. I know that some of you are really not morning people. I definitely wasn't, so I'm empathizing with you guys. I was not a morning person up until a couple years back, and then I just started trying waking up at 5:30, and it hurt for the first couple of weeks. It didn't feel good, but now I feel I can't actually sleep in. I've actually ruined myself in a way. I can't sleep in past 6. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So, but what I find in the mornings is, just like Travis said, nobody's bothering you. Everybody's kind of asleep, or the world's just, even if you're living by yourself, the world is very quiet, and you can really focus and have this quiet time. And I think it's really important to just dedicate the first couple of hours of the day to yourself, to your career, to what you really want to do. Basically, it's like, when you get paid, they always say, pay yourself first. And this is the way you should be paying yourself first with your time. Give the most creative, highest impact part of your day to yourself in the morning, before you've got to go to the day job. Obviously, don't be so spent that you get fired and you're negligent on your job, but you guys get it, that there should be a lot of energy and time that you give to yourself first, so that when you go to your job and do what you got to do, okay, so if you're spent by the end of the day, like Travis said, there's not much you can do very creatively by the end, and that's just life. Or what are you going to do about it? Well, what he did about it is he made the adjustment that he could, which was wake up early. I do recommend you guys just start waking up early, which, unfortunately means, I think fortunately, but for many of you, you got to go to bed early. Yeah, I mean, 10 p.m. I'd say max is where you should be trying to get to bed. I'd say 9 or even 8:30 if you possibly can. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take a little bit of a transition, but the more that you do that, the less time you're going to be wasting probably binge watching TV, maybe eating junk food that's not going to be good for you, or getting a sugar rush or something at the end of the night, so you can't sleep anyways, you don't get good sleep. So it solves a lot of problems, just going to bed early and waking up early. So those are my 2 cents just on a little bit of time management. Thank you so much, Travis, for being with me, man. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome.